Hey guys, it's Obone1000, and today I want to showcase a full guide to Fluffal Genesys. So, this is a deck that I have been just in love with ever since I first saw it way back in 2016, and I think it has a lot of potential in Genesys. We don't get any links or pendulums, which do suck, but for the most part, I think what we have here can be really fun, and I highly recommend this deck. But I am going to go through as many Fluffal, Edge Imp, Frightfur, any tech cards, and board breakers, hand traps. I'm going to go through everything, just so you have a general idea on what you essentially feel like playing in Genesys Fluffal. Now, the format's points change every single month, so things might be completely different, but I still hope to get across a lot of the options to go through if you're building the deck. Now, a couple of disclaimers. One, this is completely unscripted, so if I stutter or if I just take long pauses, I do apologise. I will try and cut it down. And the other disclaimer is that while I know a fair amount about Fluffal, I did some research just to make absolutely sure that I got everything. So I want to thank Kira Twig 2, Thomas Wayne, and that one nerdy friend who both have made Fluffal deck lists for Genesys that I took a look at and just made sure that I got every single card I wanted to talk about that synergizes with Fluffal. So, without further ado, let's begin. And we'll begin with basically one of the more important cards of the deck, which is Fluffal Dog. So, with Fluffal Dog, when this card is normal special summon from the hand, you can add one Imps Sabers or one Fluffal monster from your deck to your hand except Fluffal Dog, only used once per turn. It's the general searcher of the deck, just searches basically any Fluffal monster, including Imps Sabers. And it is a level 4 fairy, which will come in handy for XE summoning along with Herald of the Arclight, which I'll get into later. Fluffal Cat. If this card is sent to graveyard as a fusion 2 for fusion summon, target polymerization in graveyard, add it to hand, only use once per turn. So, before, in the lead up to recording, I always believed that it was just meant to be for Frightfur Monsters. I didn't realize that it essentially could be used for something like Guardian Chimera, Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, hell, even Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. I was getting mixed up potentially with Penguin, which does require Frightfur monsters, but again, we'll get into that later. So we have the normal summon, Searcher, and the recursion. You then have Fluffal Owl. When this card is normal special summon from the hand, you can add one polymerization from your deck to your hand. You can pay 500 life points, fusion summon one Frightfur Fusion monster from your extra deck, using monsters from your hand or field as fusion materials. Only use one Fluffal Owl effect per turn, only once that turn. So, if you were to essentially normal summon to search for poly, you then couldn't fusion summon into Frightfur monsters that same turn. You can only use one, and it has to be for Frightfur monsters only, so you can't just normal summon Fluffal Owl, and then just use Fluffal Owl to go into Garua, which you do run in this deck. I haven't put it on here because it falls under Super Poly, I'll get into that later, but it is a really good way to search for polymerization and also doubling as a Fluffal card. Ideally, as I discuss the structure of how to build for Fluffals, you essentially want to try and build it however you feel is best. However, I do recommend going OTK. I am mostly going to recommend going OTK as we're going through this, but if you want to try and focus on going first with Fluffal, that isn't a bad idea either, but just know that there are a lot of ways to break boards that I think is a lot better with Fluffal. So, moving on with Fluffal Mouse. During the main phase, special summon up to 2 copies of Fluffal Mouse from your deck. This effect can only be used once while this card is face up on the field. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck to turn you activate this effect except Frightfur Monsters. So it's not even just fusions, it's just strictly Frightfur Monsters. You are locked out of Xyz, you are locked out of other fusion monsters, synchros, you are just strictly focused only on Frightfurs, which I'm not a fan of, personally. I don't like being locked into only one specific type of monster, not even type, just name. So, but if this is something you want to throw in just for Wolf, then that is an option, but I would not recommend this. I've put every single card on here, including some really bad ones like Leo that we'll get into. I'm just giving you an overall recommendation, and I don't recommend running Fluffal Mouse. So, Fluffal Rabbit. If this card is sent to the graveyard as a fusion material for a fusion summon, you can target one Edge Imp Sabers or one Fluffal monster in your graveyard, except Fluffal Rabbit, and add it to your hand. You can only use this effect of Fluffal Rabbit once per turn. So, it's more recursion, essentially. I personally am not a fan of this either, if I'm being honest. I find that in order to really utilize this card, it's worthwhile using cards like, let's say, Fluffal Sheep, which you can... I'll get into that now, actually. If you control Fluffal monster except Fluffal Sheep, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can return one of a Fluffal monster you control to the hand, special summon one Edge Imp monster from your hand or graveyard. Only use Fluffal Sheep once per turn. So, realistically, these two are really good if you just want to focus on Link summoning. But this is going to be mainly focused on Genesys format, so I do not recommend running either of these. With Fluffal Rabbit especially, in order to really utilize the extra recursion of your Fluffal Edge Imp monsters, you essentially would need to have like some kind of way of using polymerization to add to it, which you're only getting half the package, so just these two I would not recommend. However, these are worthwhile to keep in mind if you're playing TCG. Fluffal Octopus. When this card is normal special summoned, you can target one Fluffal Edge Imp monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. If this card is sent to the graveyard as a fusion material for a fusion summon of a Frightfur Fusion monster, you can target up to 2 of your banished monsters, return them to the graveyard. You can only use each effect of Fluffal Octopus once per turn. So, similar to Owl, you cannot use both the same turn, you can only use one. And I cannot recommend this card either, realistically. When it comes to returning 2 banished monsters, there's only really one card you would ever really care about returning to the graveyard from banish, and that's Fluffal Wings, which again I'll get into later. But if we're just ignoring that and focusing on the normal special summon, I just genuinely believe that there's other better options for normal summoning a Fluffal monster, such as Dog, and especially Dolphin, which I'll get into very soon. But I do not think that Fluffal Octopus is necessarily a good card to use in Genesys. Maybe Link, like TCG with links and stuff, because you would be special summoning Sheep. So if you normal summon Octopus to then add back Sheep, you can then summon Sheep and then just link summon. But I don't, I don't really recommend this in Genesys. Fluffal Penguin. This card, if I were to be completely honest, this is one of the most important Fluffal cards in the entire archetype. So, during the main phase, you can special summon one Fluffal monster from your hand except Fluffal Penguin. This effect can only be used once while this card is face up on the field. It's a soft once per turn, so if you are able to spring out another Fluffal Penguin onto the field, you can then do the exact same effect again, but you can only do it once while this card is on the field. There is another soft once per turn we will get into. I'm going to say that a lot, but trust me, we will get into that later. But there will be another soft once per turn that I will discuss later that's even better than this. But the main effect you really want to care about is if this card is sent to the graveyard as a fusion tool for a fusion summon of a Frightfur Fusion monster, you can draw 2 cards and discard 1 card. You can only use this effect to Fluffal Penguin once per turn, so you can do both effects in the same turn. It's not strictly locked to only doing 1 effect per turn. Now, this is kind of insane, because there are a lot of cards in Fluffal that love being discarded, one of which is Chain, another is Sabers, and especially Toy Vendor, but yeah, we'll get into that later. Fluffal Dolphin. You can target 1 Toy Vendor in your graveyard, set it, and if you do, send 1 Fluffal Monster or Engine Sabers from your deck to the graveyard. This effect, it feels like a custom card for this deck. It really does. It just absolutely, like, completely gives this deck such an advantage if this goes off, because you essentially are able to initiate a sequence where you can draw practically 3 cards. This deck can essentially let you draw 3 cards, more or less. Or, well, to draw 2 cards and then search, but you're basically going +3. But we'll get into that later again. It just synergizes with Wings, which is what Wings will do. But then the other effect, which is still pretty good, if this card is sent to the graveyard as a fusion material for a fusion summon, so not Frightfur, you can shuffle into the deck 1 of your fusion spells or polymerization spells that is banished or in the graveyard. You can only use the effect of Fluffal Dolphin once per turn. Now, this effect to return to the deck a fusion card, this isn't just for polymerization. This works with Super Polymerization, this works with Necrofusion, this works with Frightfur Fusion. It works with a lot of fusion cards, so it's definitely, like, if possible, if you know that you have another polymerization in your deck, then you would always want to just add back either Super Polymerization or just any other form of polymerization. But if you don't have any polymerization in your deck, then you definitely want to add this back. Right, so Patchwork Fluffal. This card, I'm just going to say immediately, I don't like it. This is also treated as a Frightfur monster while face up on the field. This card on the field can be used as a substitute for any one fusion material whose name is specifically listed on a Frightfur Fusion monster, but the other fusion materials must be correct. It's just... it's a worse version of King of the Swamp. It's just a worse version of King of the Swamp. Like, I cannot imagine anyone realistically running this over King of the Swamp, because it does everything this does, except essentially it also searches polymerization, and this doesn't. So I just cannot recommend this card. This is one of the worst Fluffal cards you could really add into your deck. Not the worst though. This is the worst. Fluffal Leo. When this card declares an attack, it gains 500 attack until the end of the battle phase. That's it. That's all Fluffal Leo does. It's... don't use the Fluffal Leo. Just don't. Just don't. It doesn't synergize with anything. It doesn't recur. It just only has one effect that's so situational, and it just... so many cards do this better. There's a card called Frightfur Sabertooth that literally gives your monsters plus 400 attack. Frightfur Tiger gives your monsters more attack. Frightfur Cruel Whale gives you monsters more... this is just the worst card. I don't know why this exists. I don't know. I'll just get rid of it, alright? Don't put it in your deck, alright? Fluffal Bear and Fluffal Wings. These two are also arguably the most important cards in Fluffal as well, alongside Penguin and Dolphin. Genuinely, these 4 cards, Bear, Wings, Penguin, and Dolphin, are ones you always want to be running. It would be silly not to run them. You can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, set 1 Toy Vendor directly from your deck to your spell and trap zone. Toy Vendor, is, again, one of the most important spells in the deck. It is just... We'll get into that. We will get into that. But this basically enables Toy Vendor. Now, you contribute this card, then target one polymerization in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can only use one Fluffal Bear effect per turn and only once that turn. So, much like Fluffal Owl and Fluffal Octopus, you can't do both effects that same turn. But this is really good for if you just want to add back polymerization to your hand. But genuinely, you will always want to use this specifically to bring out Toy Vendor. And Toy Vendor is just nuts. And in fact, let me show you why. Let me just show you Fluffal Wings. If this card is in your graveyard and you control Toy Vendor, you can banish this card from your graveyard and target one Fluffal monster in your graveyard. Banish it, and if you do, draw one card. Then you can send one Toy Vendor you control to the graveyard, and if you do, draw one card. So, this card just lets you draw two cards. Completely. You draw two cards. Just, all you need is two Fluffal monsters in the graveyard, including this, and Toy Vendor on the field, and you just draw two cards. And it's amazing if you can get this off, and you can draw into cards that aren't Fluffal, such as Herald of the Orange Light, Super Polymerization, Necro Fusion, just, it is so good. It is just so good, and that rounds up more or less all of the Fluffals. There are other Fluffal monsters, but they're pendulums, and we're not really running those in Genesys format, but in case you're interested, a brief rundown. Angel essentially just reborns a monster but locks you into fusions. There is also Edge Imp Cotton Eater, which just draws you a card once per turn whenever you fusion summon a Frightfur monster. And finally there is Frightfur Miser, which I don't even know what it does. I'm gonna be completely honest. I didn't even bother researching or reading the card for this video just because, well, it's a Genesys video. And also just because I don't like it. I don't know. I just never really used it. I have, like, read it in the past. Just never really seemed like something you would want to use. Just trust me. Right. Moving on. That's all the Fluffals. We're now getting into the Edge Imps, and there aren't as many Edge Imps in comparison to the to Fluffals. So you want to take this into account when building your deck, because you don't just want to be flooded with nothing but Fluffals in your hand. You want to see some Edge Imps so you can poly into your Frightfur monsters, because most Frightfur monsters require an Edge Imp and a Fluffal monster. So just try and balance this out. I'd say go with a ratio of 60 to 70% Fluffal and 30% Edge Imp. Actually, something like that, I would say. 60 to 70% Fluffal and 40 to 30% Edge Imp. Ideally, probably 70 to 30, right? Edge Imp Chain. When this card declares an attack, you can add one Edge Imp Chain from your deck to your hand. You almost never use this effect, and if you do use this effect, it's only really good for milling your deck. Let's say, like, you just want to mill, well, not mill, but, like, you just draw into the cards you need. You filter it out, so you have all of the Fluffals and Edge Imps and everything, so during the draw phase, you can more or less be more likely to draw into cards that might actually come in handy for negating, or just cards you can't search in general. But the main effect of Edge Imp Chain, that is the most important, is if this card is sent from the hand or field to the graveyard, you can add one Frightfur card from your deck to your hand. You can only use one Edge Imp Chain effect per turn, and only once per turn. So again, like Owl, like Octopus, like Bear, only one of these effects you can use that turn. But this effect, to add a Frightfur card, is insane. It is, like, you are probably familiar with this card if you play Branded, because what Branded players will do is they bring out they used to run Edge Imp Chain. I mean, some decks they still run this. They will run Edge Imp Chain and Frightfur Patchwork, because Patchwork it just gives you like +1 card advantage without any consequence really. So you would just use Chain to discard or fuse into it just to search for Patchwork and then just extend further. So this is the best Edge Imp card in like the archetype, I would argue. The second best though is a tie between these two, I would say. With Edge Imp Sabers, this card is in your graveyard. You can place one card from your hand on top of the deck, special summon this card in defense position. You can only use this effective Edge Imp Sabers once per turn. So it doesn't seem like a good card initially, because you're essentially just like, you could potentially brick. Like realistically, if you want to summon this out on your field, you would essentially put a card from your hand on top of the deck, and like you would draw it, and it would just completely like screw you over, because let's say you wanted Foolish Burial Goods, or like Frightfur Fusion, or just anything to get you out of a bad situation. And Edge Imp Sabers, obviously, if you need to bring it out, you'll have to put like a card from your hand on top of the deck, and it would just feel like a dead card. But the reason why Edge Imp Sabers is important, it's for two reasons. The first reason is that a majority of, well, not a majority, but some of the best Frightfur monsters in the archetype, including Frightfur Tiger, require you to use Edge Imp Sabers, along with Wolf, Edge Imp Sabers. So it's definitely just worth having as a one-of, and it does help that Dog can search for it. And then the other card is Edge Imp Scythe. So, during your opponent's main phase, quick effect, you can reveal this card in your hand, fusion summon one Frightfur Fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as a fusion material, including this card in your hand. So it's just a hand trap to fusion summon on the opponent's turn. If a Frightfur Fusion monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. You can only use each effective Edge Imp Scythe once per turn, so you can do both effects that same turn, which is really good. And the fact that you can special summon or fusion summon a Frightfur monster just on the opponent's turn is nuts, especially if you're going second. This card right here is one of the main reasons why I think an OTK for Fluffal is just the best, because you ideally would use Edge Imp Scythe to then go into Fluffal Penguin and then fuse into Frightfur Cruel Whale, so then Fluffal Penguin would go off, you would draw two cards, discard a card, that card that you would discard might be Fluffal Wings, and then Fluffal Wings would interact with Toy Vendor to draw two cards, and on top of that, you have protection. It's really good. The only downside, realistically, is, let's say you have Edge Imp Scythe and Fluffal Dog. It would hurt. It would hurt quite a bit, because you would essentially be losing two cards in your hand if you're going second. So timing and knowledge of what the opponent is playing is key to mastering how to use Edge Imp Scythe. The other three Edge Imps, they're not worth running. I'm just going to be completely honest, but I'll go through them anyway again. When this card is normal summoned, you can send one Fluffal monster from your hand to the graveyard, draw two cards, and place one card from your hand on either the top or bottom of your deck. You can only use this effective Edge Imp Soul once per turn. Unfortunately, when it comes to Fluffal, like, there isn't a way to normal summon more than once. I think this deck really, really could, like, use another way of normal summoning. It isn't worth running double summon in this deck, by the way. I don't recommend using double summon. Because, again, like, you would much rather have, like, a more important card to use, like, I don't like it. You would much rather want to normal summon Dog or normal summon Dolphin, or even Penguin potentially. These are like the 3 best cards to essentially normal summon, plus Fluffal Bear too if you want to bring back Polymerization from your graveyard. This just, it does draw you cards, but you're just kind of like gambling, whereas you could search for something you might want more, or just like get an even better draw if you normal summon Dolphin. Now, Edrimp Saw is used for one specific fusion monster of a Frightfur monster, and that is Frightfur Leo. And I do recommend you run this card in a Fluffal package, you know, in the Fluffal Archetype, the deck. However, I would not recommend you use Edrimp Saw. Ideally, you would use King the Swamp to substitute to go into Frightfur Leo. Leo is more of a desperation play for if you want to like win by burning the opponent's life points to 0, but for the most part it won't come up much, but it's still good to have anyway. Just don't run Edrimp Saw, that's what I recommend. And the other 2 Edrimp monsters, they're worse. I hate to break it, but they are worse. You can send 1 Edrimp monster from your hand to the graveyard, inflict 800 damage to your opponent. Not important at all, that's just... I'm sure somewhere out there in this world, someone has managed to win a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Using this card to burn for the win, but it's just not worth running just for this. And it also has the effect, you can send 1 Edrimp monster from your deck to the graveyard, except Edrimp Tamahawk. This card's name because the sent monster's name until the end phase. Now, it does sound ideal, like, kind of enticing even, just to like send Edrimp Sabers, just to then copy the name, so then you can go into like Tiger or Wolf, but it's not, again, I don't think it's worth it at all. I mean, with Fluffal Dog, you could just search Edrimp Sabers anyway, and then Sabers can just bring itself back constantly. And not only that, but even though Edrimp Chain has the effect where if this card is sent to graveyard, you can add 1 Frightfur card from your deck to your hand. It has to be sent from the hand or field to the graveyard. You can't just Foolish Burial this card, because it does nothing. It will do nothing if you send it from the deck to your graveyard. So this just... I don't like it. Don't run it. Edrimp Frightfuloid. This card is always treated as a Frightfur card. You can target 1 Frightfur Fusion once you control all in your graveyard. This card's attack and defense each become equal to the original attack and defense of that monster until the end of this turn. You can only use the effect of Edrimp Frightfuloid once per turn. That's it. That's the effect. It doesn't lead into anything. It's I don't like it. Honestly, this card is always treated as a Frightfur card. That is better than this effect. All you really need is you could just read this, and you're good. But that's not even enough. That's not enough. This is probably, in my opinion, the worst Edrimp card in the entire archetype. So don't run this either. Ideally, the cards you will want to run the most, the monsters, would be Dog, Cat, Owl, Penguin, Dolphin, Bear, and Wings, along with Chain, Sabers, and Scythe. These are the main monsters that I would highly recommend you try out, but if you do want to experiment with Saw or Sheep or Rabbit, you know, go right ahead, but I'm just giving you my own personal recommendation that those cards aren't really worth trying out if you're going for an OTK. They might be good for if you, for example, say want to try out a going first strategy, but I just, again, only go with Dog, Cat, Owl, all that, alright? Right, now onto the spells. Right, so, in terms of spells, we have Polymerization. everyone knows what polymerization. If you watch the anime, you know what polymerization is. It's a way for you to go into fusions. All right. Toy vendor. Here we go. This is without a doubt the single best spell card in the archetype. Once per turn, it's a continuous spell card. Once per turn, can discard one card, draw one card, and show it. Then if it is a Fluffal monster, you can special summon one monster from your hand, otherwise discard the card you drew. Basically, it's the let's go gambling of this deck, but it's so much more than that. It is so much more. For example, let's say, when I was going on about Edge Imp Sabers before, right? Let's say, for example, you activate Edge Imp Sabers, you return Fluffal Dog back to the top of your deck to special summon Sabers, alright? You then use Toy Vendor to discard Fluffal Wings from your hand, you would then draw Fluffal Dog, and then, because you essentially drew a Fluffal, you can then special summon it. And then you basically would have Fluffal Dog do its effect. It's great. It is good. It is a bit risky as well, using it, because sometimes, let's say you don't do that, and you end up activating the effect, and then you draw Herald of the Orange Light, that will just go to graveyard. Super Poly, that would go to graveyard. Any of the Edge Imps, apart from Chain, those would go to the graveyard. But just being able to discard Fluffal Wings, Edge Imp Chain, that's really good, because it just gives you more, like, bonuses. But that's not the best effect. In my opinion, the best effect. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add one Edge Imp Sabers or one Fluffal monster from your deck to your hand. That is not once per turn. That is not once per turn. In fact, this entire effect is a soft once per turn. If you have two toy vendors, you can each use the effect to discard a card and draw a card if it's Fluffal, special summon it, and you can just send this card as many times as possible to the graveyard and then just keep adding more Fluffals. And what makes this so good is, if you remember with Wings, then you can send one toy vendor you control to the graveyard, and if you do, draw one card. You would then use this effect to search for a Fluffal monster or Edge Imp Sabers. So with Fluffal Wings, you're drawing two cards and searching. This, honestly, I love this. I love it so much. Like, the power of Toy Vendor is just unmatched. Well, not unmatched, but it ranks highly in terms of just how much draw power you get. Because of Toy Vendor's effect, I would also highly recommend you run Foolish Burial Goods. Send one spell trap from your deck to the graveyard, only activate one Foolish Burial Goods once per turn. Now, unlike with Edge Imp Chain, where it needs to be sent from the hand or field to the graveyard to activate its effect to add to the hand, you can literally just, if it literally says, if this card is sent to the graveyard, it doesn't matter if it's from the deck or anywhere, which is amazing. Now, this card, Frightfur Patchwork. Add one Edge Imp monster and one polymerization from your deck to your hand. Only activate one Frightfur Patchwork per turn. So, again, like I said before, gives you +1 card advantage, no setbacks. There was a reason why this card was run and branded, and it is the exact reason as to why it is 33 points, unfortunately. It's one of the most important cards in the archetype, and I know I've been saying that a lot, I know I have, but I cannot understate just how important it is to have essentially a way to search for the Edge Imps, which basically are really difficult to search for or have in your hand, and polymerization too. And because if you already have a Fluffal monster in your hand, you're good to go. Oh, unfortunately, because of the fact that it is 33 points, I would only ever recommend running one copy. You could theoretically just play 3 copies and then have the rest be like 0, more or less. Like, you could just go completely 0. In fact, that is what Kira Twig 2's profile did. He essentially played 3 copies of Patchwork and made it 99 cards, and then just didn't use cards like Super Poly or Forbidden Droplet, stuff like that. But no, I don't recommend it, because realistically, Fluffal is not that great at breaking boards on its own. you just need cards like Super Poly or Forbidden Droplet or Ultimate Slayer, you know? I mean, theoretically you could run Ultimate Slayer and 3 Patchworks, but ideally Super Poly is just so much better. Just only really run Patchwork, maybe experiment with 2 copies, but I just would not go for 3. And this is a Frightfur card too, so you can search for it with Chain. And onto the next Frightfur card, we have Frightfur Fusion. Fusion summon 1 Frightfur Fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion monsters listed on it from your field or graveyard. Only activate 1 Frightfur Fusion per turn. And this is also really, really, really good, because you just essentially like get an extra... It's like, this is ideally the last card you would play before you go into battle phase and attack for OTK. Because once you've done everything, once you've sent all the things you necessarily want in the graveyard, you can then just throw this in, just as, like, the cherry on top, to then go into Frightfur Wolf, or maybe Frightfur Tiger. Just really good, but I would only ever run 1 copy, mainly because I don't really see a point as to why you would really want to run more than 1 copy, given that it is searchable from Chain. You can recycle it back into your deck through Dolphin. Just only run 1 copy, but it's really good. Frightfur Repair. Target 1 Frightfur Fusion monster in your graveyard, return it to the extra deck, then you can special summon 1 Fluffal Edgent monster from your graveyard. You can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon 1 Fluffal or Edgent monster from your hand. You can only use 1 Frightfur Repair effect per turn and only once that turn. So, once again, you know, like Owl, like Octopus, like, you know, Bear, you can only use 1 of it per turn. This was really good for links. This was really, really good for if you're wanting to go into links, because you could just banish it and then special summon a Fluffal from your hand, which basically gave the deck a extra normal summon, like I was saying before. But I can't really like recommend you run this, because ideally, unless like you're running links, it doesn't really matter if you normal summon again. It would have to be a card that is really, really, really worth normal summoning, but if you want to run this, you can. I would just be cautious about this, because this isn't going to work most of the time. Like, sometimes it just might not seem worth it. You would just mainly, like, want to go into Patchwork or just Fusion. There is a way to send this to the graveyard with Cruel Whale. That is possible. But still, I'm not the biggest fan of it in terms of Genesys format. Frightfur Reborn. Target 1 Frightfur monster in your graveyard, special summon it. It's basically a monster reborn for this deck with no points, which is pretty alright, and then also because it's a Frightfur card, it can be searched. During your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 of your banished Fluffal Frightfur monsters. Return it to the graveyard. Now, that is pretty good, because you could just send Fluffal Wings, more or less, to from banishment, and then put it back into graveyard. But, like, if you're OTKing, ideally you don't really have a plan for if it goes into turn 3, or turn 4 even. So, I just, again, wouldn't really recommend running Frightfur Reborn, but who knows, like, because maybe you might find a situation where you drew Patchwork, or you drew Frightfur Fusion, you drew both, and you have nothing to search for with Edgent Chain. These cards, if you really want more stuff, like, to search for with Edgent Chain, they are worth considering, I suppose, but I just personally wouldn't recommend them. I would only really recommend these 2 Frightfur cards, spell cards. Right. Frightfur Factory, it is a continuous spell card. You can banish 1 Polymerization spell card or Fusion card from your graveyard, so this would include Super Polymerization, Necro Fusion, Frightfur Fusion, except Diffusion Wave Motion. Fusion summon 1 Frightfur Fusion monster from your extra deck, using monsters from your hand or your side of the field as fusion materials. This card sent to graveyard, you can target 1 of your banished Frightfur Fusion. Add add it to your hand. You can only use each effective Frightfur Factory once per turn. So, again, this might be pretty good. I don't really know why you would banish Frightfur Fusion, though. I can't really think of anything in this deck that causes Frightfur Fusion to get banished. But the effect to Fusion Summon without Polymerization, you just banish it from the graveyard and... Oh, actually, no, I'm an idiot. Sorry, I am an idiot. You would just banish... Sorry, I'm being stupid. You would banish Frightfur Fusion. Okay, I see what it's trying to do. I still wouldn't really recommend this regardless, though. Mainly just because, like, when it comes to Frightfur Factory, it kind of, like... It more or less just revolves around, getting more fusion summons in. Whereas, realistically, when it comes to Fluffals, ideally you wouldn't want to fusion summon more than 3 times per turn. Like, Fluffal Cat. Fluffal Cat is just a better version of, Frightfur Factory. You would use Fluffal Cat instead, because Fluffal Cat will just bring you back the polymerization, just like that. So yeah, it is worth having Frightfur Fusion in, just being able to add it back, but I just think that Cat does it better. I really do, and plus with it being a Fluffal monster, it's a way, it's another way for you to, like, get a piece of the, of your Frightfur Fusions. Right. Okay. Sutra Rebirth. This isn't a Frightfur card, but it is still a Fluffal card for some reason. Target Fluffal or Frightfur monster. Target one Fluffal Frightfur monster in your graveyard. Special summon it, but its effects are negated. You can only activate one Sutra Rebirth once per turn. Again, it's just a monster reborn. It's just like Frightfur Reborn, but it's not even searchable. And it doesn't even reborn like any of the big, like, boss monsters that you have. So, this is just even worse. And it has Leo on the cover, so just... There you go. Yeah. Okay. Toy Parade. To my knowledge, as of 2025, this is the last, Fluffal, support ever printed. And it's not good. Card is always treated as a Frightfur card, so it is searchable from chain, I believe. I think that's how it works. Target one dark monster you control, special summon from the extra deck. Target one dark monster you control, special summon from the extra deck. For the rest of this turn, you cannot declare attacks except with that monster. Also, each time that monster destroys a monster by battle and sends it to a graveyard, it can attack again in a row. If you control Fairy monster except the turn this card was sent to a graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, add one level 4 lower dark monster from your graveyard to your hand. You only use one Toy Parade effect per turn, only once that turn. So, again, the exact... So the exact same as before. Oh, I can't even highlight it. Exact same as Owl and Octopus and Bear. Where it just... It like... Oh, hang on, I need to get the effect up. Oh. Wait. I was thinking of a better card. Right, so... Basically, this kind of kills the strategy of OTKing completely. I mean... It's just an anti-OTK card. I don't really like that, at all, if you ask me. Yeah, also just adding, like, a dark level 4 lower dark monster from graveyard to hand. Like, I think what is my biggest gripe with Toy Parade is that there are monsters you have access to, such as Wolf and Kraken, that attack multiple times per turn. Multiple times. So, you wouldn't even ever want to use the first effect, and the second effect you could just... like the second effect is just done better with sabers and the toy vendor. I don't know what they were thinking when they made Toy Parade. Frightfur Sanctuary, continuous. Activate this card by discarding one card and sending 2 Frightfur monsters from your extra deck to the graveyard. All fusion monsters you control are also treated as Frightfur monsters. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 Frightfur fusion monster in your graveyard, return it to the extra deck. Again, I don't like this. I don't like this either, and I don't think you should run it. When it comes to Frightfur monsters, you're going to be running mostly Frightfur monsters. Most of them are Frightfur monsters, with the exception of, let's say, Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, or maybe Magnum, or even Entis. Even Garua too. Like, with those exceptions, you are just mainly running Frightfur Fusions. So, I don't... And then adding it back to your hand anyway, there isn't really a benefit to sending a Frightfur Fusion monster from your deck to the graveyard. If they do ever print a Frightfur card that has that kind of effect, that will be really good. Really, really good. It would make this potentially a lot more viable, but for the time being, we don't have anything like that, where sending it from the deck to the graveyard is really worth it. Well, now we're getting onto the traps, and there's only really 4. This one's simple. Tiger 1 engine, put Fluffal monster in your graveyard, special summon it, and if you do, it can be treated as a fight for a monster for a fusion summon. Trap cards, as you know, notoriously very slow paced compared to, you know, modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Just doesn't work. It doesn't work, really. Like, you would be doing this on the opponent's turn. Like, unless you have, is it Quick Fusion? Flash Fusion. Yeah, so unless you're, like, running Flash Fusion, where you fusion summon 1 fusion monster from the extra deck using monsters you control as a fusion, like, unless you have that, because it's a quick effect, again, I don't know why you would, like, run, Designer Frightfur, unless it was just for this, but, again, if you really want to go Flash Fusion, there's a better option right here. So, again, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Also, I don't know what it is, but this mouse is being awkward. Oh, alright, it's fixed. Fix the mouse. There you go. Alright. Fusion Fright Waltz. This one... it's... okay. Where to begin? Target 1 Frightfur Fusion monster you control, 1 fusion monster your opponent controls. So, the opponent would have to have a fusion monster. You just have to somehow know that they're playing a fusion deck. Destroy as many of the special summon monsters on the field as possible. Then each player that had a monster's... Then each player that had a monster destroyed by this effect, takes damage equal to the combined current attack of the targeted monsters on the field. So, this affects you too. It's basically a burn card, where you just burn the opponent by destroying all of their other monsters, that just so happen to be on the field, while they also have a fusion monster on the field. Again, I mean, it does sound good, in the fact that you can just disrupt your opponent by getting rid of, like, their monsters, so they can't continuously, like, extend. But there's better cards that can, like, deal with that. There's better cards that can just disrupt them. And the burn damage isn't really worth it. This is a card that is almost never going to go off. You'll almost never, ever, like, have this card go off at all if you run it. And even if it does, if the stars align, where you manage to have your opponent have a fusion monster, you manage to have... They manage to get other monsters on the field, and you could do massive damage with this, right? They're probably gonna have, like, They're probably gonna have, like this, where they'll just invoke to Mech Abba, where they'll just completely negate it. You know? I mean, who knows? Maybe not. Like, maybe they won't have a trap in their hand, so they can't negate... It's a once-in-a-blue-moon card that isn't worth running. You can play 100 games of, Fluffals, and if you run this card, you will only ever see it, like, used 3 times. Right. Frightfur Jar. This card's name becomes Toy Vendor while it is on the field or in the graveyard. Now, already, given that Toy Vendor is one of the best spell cards for Fluffals, it sounds really good. It does sound really, really good, but once per turn, you can discard 1 card, draw 1 card, and show it. And if it is an Edge Imp monster, you can destroy 1 card in field, otherwise place 1 card from your hand on top or the bottom of the deck. So it is just a complete, like, it's basically evil, evil Toy Vendor. It's just, it's evil Toy Vendor. I mean, look at it. It is just blatant. I love that. I love the art. I love the idea of them making an evil Toy Vendor, but it's just, again, not worth running, in my opinion, because it is just destroying a card on the field, and given that you run more Fluffal monsters than you would run Edge Imp monsters, this effect isn't going to go off nearly as much. And then the final effect, you can target 1 face-up monster if this card's sent to a graveyard, you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. Half its attack until the end of this turn. I mean, compare that to, if this card's sent to graveyard, you can add 1 Fluffal Edge Imp Sabers. That's... No, I would not recommend this. I don't recommend this either, unfortunately. Which is a shame, because I love the idea of just an evil Toy Vendor. But, yeah, it's just not worth it, given how few Edge Imps you have. And also just the fact that having, like, the opponent's monster's attack. Like, it's... You can't even activate it. I mean, can you? Does it work with Fluffal Bear? Yeah, you can. It just says set. You can't activate it the same turn, so you would ideally activate this on the opponent's turn, who by then would probably, like, get rid of it or something. I don't know, I would not, again, I just wouldn't recommend running it. And then finally, Frightfur March, which, in my opinion, is the best, trap card in this archetype, and it has some really cool art. I really like the art. It's got almost all the Frightfur cards. It's really cool. It's a counter as well. When an opponent's spell/trap card or monster effect is activated that targets a Frightfur monsters you control, negate the activation, and if you do destroy that card, then you can send 1 of the targeted Frightfur monsters to the graveyard, and if you do, special summon 1 level 8 or higher Frightfur Fusion monster from the extra deck. This special summon is treated as a fusion summon, so a lot of Frightfur monsters in your deck only really do effects when it is fusion summoned. So when this card is fusion summoned, when this card is fusion summoned, if this card is fusion summoned, you know, so having it treated as a fusion summon, really good. And the fact that it negates an effect where it gets targeted, that is good. But this card was printed years ago. I can't remember exactly when it was printed. It was probably printed around the time of Pendulums, because that was when the Fluffals came out, more or less. This card would just work so much better if, instead of negating a card that targets a Frightfur monster you control, if it just instead negates an opponent's card effect, like spell, trap, monster effect. It would be so much better for that. They should print a card just for that, because that would be really cool, just to be able to search from Edge Imp Chain, Frightfur card that can just negate, which is really cool. Kind of like what Marincess have. Sort of like this, where Marincess Wave, where you can search for it with Marincess Call Triangle, but I'm getting off topic. Just, that is more or less all the Frightfur, well, okay, all the Fluffals, all the Edge Imps, and now we're going to be moving on to the Fusion Monsters. So, all the Frightfurs, here we go. I'm going to discuss the rest of these afterwards, just because they are more so situational cards, or like tech options that you would want to run, and you would have a better understanding of it if you understood the Frightfur cards. So, here we go. Frightfur Sheep, Edge Imp Chain, and a Fluffal monster, so you can't use Scythe or Sabers, it has to be Chain. If this card battles, your opponent cannot activate cards with effects until the end of the damage step. If this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, or if this card in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect and sent to your graveyard, you can special summon this card, and if you do, it gains 800 attack. You can only use the effect to fight for sheep once per turn. That... Okay, I don't know what it is with, I don't know what it is with, Toy Parade. Hang on, let me fix this. Okay. Right, sorted it out. So, going back where I left off, Frightfur Sheep, this card battles, well, okay, I just read it. So, it is the lowest level Frightfur monster at 5. It just doesn't really do much. Again, I can't recommend that you run this card, just because, I mean, unless... let's say you run multiple Frightfur Sheep that you can just summon out, and you want to go into an Xyz rank 5 potentially. Like, that is an option. I wouldn't recommend it. Because like it's only if it gets destroyed. Like, it could have its it could just be banished or whatever. You know, it's just more of a nuisance than like having it be like disruption. It just doesn't disrupt, and we mainly just want to focus on disruption. Frightfur Chimera, free Frightfur monsters, free. So the archetype really wants you to, like, this is basically the Frightfur boss monster, the big one. It's like the one that was in the anime Arc 5, Arc V or whatever. And you know, with cards like Edge Imp Frightfuloid, where it's always treated as Frightfur card, with there was other cards as well that was just treated that, yeah, okay, yeah, with Frightfur Sanctuary, where they're just treated all as Frightfur monsters. It really wants you to go into Chimera. This card is one of the worst Frightfur fusions. Oh, right. So, must be fusion summoned, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. It's the only one that is really like this. So you could realistically bring out Tiger through, like, special summoning from the graveyard. Not this. So this already just kind of, like, shoots itself in the foot. If this card battles, your opponent cannot activate cards effects until the end of the damage step. So it's got the Ancient Gear Golem-like effect, you know? Where it just can't use Mirror Force. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can special summon that monster to your field, but its attack is halved. You can only use this effect to fight from Chimera once per turn. This card gains 300 attack for each monster you control that is owned by your opponent. This would be a pretty fine enough card to have if it was just, like, one Fluffal monster, one Edge Imp monster, but no, it's 3 Frightfur monsters. Free. So, it expects you to either use Edge Imp Frightfuloid, use Frightfur Sanctuary, use potentially 2 of your fusion monsters that you've already spent resources to bring out to go into Frightfur Chimera, and it's just not worth it. It's not worth, like, a card like this that requires so much resources to be spent and put into it, you would think would just be so much stronger, but it isn't. It's not. It's just not worth running at all. The cost is not, does not equal the effect, in my opinion. So, Dangerous Frightfur Nightmare. 1 Edge Imp monster plus 2 Fluffal monsters. So already, just like before, it requires 3 monsters instead of 2. But for the most part, at least it's, you know, 1 Edge Imp monster, 2 Fluffal monsters, which you don't necessarily need to spend too many resources to go into. Right, gains 300 attack for each fairy and feed monster in your graveyard. That's fine. During your turn only. When this fusion summoned card destroys a monster by battle, you can send Frightfur, Fluffal, and or Edge Imp monsters from your deck to the graveyard equal to the original level of that destroyed monster. So I get what it's trying to do. It's trying to like, hey, let's just dump sabers, let's dump wings, let's dump all of these cards essentially into the graveyard so that they can do graveyard effects and stuff. But apart from wings and sabers, and maybe scythe, like, you know, maybe you want protection for your monsters, I don't think you would really want to like run this just for that. And its other effect. When your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a card in the field, quick effect, you can banish one Frightfur monster from your extra deck. Negate that effect. So, it is a negation, and it's not a once per turn negation, which sounds really, really, really good. Not once per turn negation, but it's only target. So, for example, it would be able to negate something like, let's say, Fissure? Oh, no, it wouldn't, sorry. What's another example? Okay, so, Mirror Jade. Yeah, so this card, I believe, this is from Branded, so, oh, no, that doesn't target, right, just target, right? That basically, there are gonna be cards and effects that just don't target, and it won't be able to do that. It won't be able to negate anything. Like Raigeki, it just says destroy all monsters your opponent controls. That doesn't target, so it doesn't really like help much. It's just not really worth running because of that. Moving on, Frightfur Daredevil. This is the highest attacking Frightfur monster in the deck, or in the archetype, and it's got a really cool design. I like the design. One Edgent monster plus one Fluffal monster. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can inflict 1000 damage to your opponent. If this face-up card is destroyed by battle, leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, while its owner controls it, you can inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each Frightfur monster in your graveyard. I believe this includes itself, so if it dies and goes to the graveyard, it's an automatic minus 500 life points to the opponent, I think. Yeah. It's just a burn card. It's a burn card, and, you know, this might have been good for, like, old Yu-Gi-Oh! Time rules, but given, like, the change and everything, it just, it's not really worth, like, burn damage, honestly. Like, burn damage just can't equate to, like, the sheer force of, like, the attacks, going direct to the opponent. So, again, I wouldn't run these. So, I will admit, these 4 cards are, without a doubt, the worst in terms of Frightfur's fusion monsters, and I just wanted to get them out of the way so we can get into, like, the good stuff, or decent stuff. So, starting with Frightfur Bear. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can equip that monster's card as an equipped spell with this effect. The equipped monster gains 1000 attack. Now, on the surface, it doesn't seem good either, at all. I mean, it's the only Frightfur monster that requires 2 specific monsters. It doesn't say, Edgent monster, Fluffal monster. It specifically asks for Sabers and Bear. But, oddly enough, even though this is the case, where it requires 2 specific, monsters to bring out, that's kind of why you would want to run this, maybe. Just maybe. Because, let's say you have a Polymerization, Edgent Sabers, okay, let's say you have Frightfur Patchwork and King of the Swamp, and you don't have anything, you have nothing to go into, essentially. You would activate Patchwork adds Polymerization and Sabers, and then you would Polymerization for Edgent Sabers and King of the Swamp, because King of the Swamp, we'll get into that later, but it can be used as a substitute for a fusion material to then go in the Bear. So it's just a desperation play, really, and whether or not it's worth it, I'll leave that up to you. I personally don't run it. It almost seems worth running, just almost, but I do believe that there are just other methods of, like, it's not even that great of a desperation play, either. Like, it's such a specific, like, situation that I just can't recommend it. Like, ideally, it would probably be the same amount of consistency as Fusion Fright Waltz. But yeah, if you want to go for it, you know, again, be my guest and experiment, but again, I just cannot recommend this. Well, maybe, just... I think this card is better than a lot of other cards. Getting rid of Leo. Alright. Frightfur Leo. Alright, it shares the same name as my most hated Fluffal card, but thankfully it doesn't require said Leo. It's literally Leo, the cooler Leo. Edge Imp Saw, so we're using Saw, which is a card that I said I don't recommend, plus one Fluffal monster. Must be fusion summoned. You can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, destroy it, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to destroyed monster's original attack. Can only use this effect to fight for Leo once per turn. This card cannot attack directly during the turn you activate this effect. So, this again is this in my opinion is a far better desperation play. It's so much better than Bear, because it gets rid of an opponent's monster, it deals damage, and if you remember, we're running more Fluffals than we are Edge Imps, so you're more likely to have a Fluffal monster and a Polymerization and a King the Swamp, as opposed to one Edge Imp monster, one Polymerization, and one King of the Swamp. So this is a card I would recommend, but if you want to cut this out, I can see that as being reasonable. I would understand why you wouldn't run this, but I would recommend it just for if you want to do that extra little bit of burn damage, or you just want to remove a monster on the opponent's field that you just don't know how to get rid of. Now, this is where we're getting into the really good Frightfur cards. The rest of them are all, like, mandatory if you ask me. So, Kraken. One Edge monster, one Fluffal monster. Once per turn, you can target one monster your opponent controls. Send it to the graveyard. Send. So, for example, if we take Marsh... Yeah, if we take Marsh... Sorry, look at this. That's funny. I mean, I know I'm going on another tangent, I apologise, but I like that. Alright. If you take this, cannot be destroyed, oh, wrong card. So, you know what, no, I know a good example. Good example would be Frightfur Sabretooth. So, cards that say, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, so cards that cannot be destroyed by card effects, this gets around it because it doesn't destroy. The ruling is that it sends. So it just gets around that completely. It's really good for it. But also, it is a soft once per turn effect. It doesn't say you can only use this effect Frightfur Kraken once per turn. So if you're able to fuse Frightfur Kraken into another fusion monster, and then you bring out that fusion monster, if you bring out Kraken again from the graveyard, you can then do it again. The only problem is this card cannot attack directly the turn this effect is activated, which is fine. I think that's a fine enough setback. The reward is worth it. This card can make a second attack during each battle phase, so ideally what you would do is you would have this attack the opponent directly and just do massive damage, or you could just, let's say your opponent has 3 monsters on their field, you use Kraken to send one monster, then you use Kraken to get rid of the 2 other monsters, and then you use your other fusion monsters to attack directly and win. Kraken is really good. It is really good. It's worth running as either 1 or 2. And then it has the other effect that, well, let's be honest, we don't really care about this last effect. Once per turn, at the end of the battle phase, if this card battled, you can change this card to defense position. I mean, 3000 defense, that is cool. It's the highest defense stat of any Frightfur monster, but, like, it's... you could completely miss this, and nothing would change. You could just completely miss this effect. Right. Now, Cruel Whale. Cruel Whale is a contender for the best Frightfur Fusion monster in the deck. Archetype Monster, Fluffal monster. This card is fusion summoned. You can destroy one card on both players' fields. So, what you would do is you would use Archetype Scythe to fuse itself and one other Fluffal monster. Go into Cruel Whale. Cruel Whale. You could destroy one card on their field, one card on your field. And this is mandatory. Mandatory is in if you want to use the effect, you'd have to destroy one card on your field if you want to destroy a card on their field. What you would do is you would target itself, and then, let's say, what's a good card? Like, let's say they have a continuous spell, okay? Okay. Good example. I think it's red. Not. Yeah, red zone. Red zone? Or the other one. So Crimson Gaia. Crimson Gaia. If they activate Crimson Gaia, you then that is your cue to essentially use Archetype Scythe to then go into Cruel Whale and just completely get rid of this. Essentially. And then it just completely stops them from searching anything, and it's good because the Red Dragon Archfiend is one of the best decks in Genesys, so it's always worth keeping in mind. And that's just the first line. This is just the first line as well, and already it feels super valuable, and it has a second effect. Once per turn, quick effect, you can target one fusion monster you control. Send one Frightfur card from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard, except Frightfur Cruel Whale, and if you do, the targeted monster gains attack equal to half of its original attack until the end of this turn. So, when I said before about Frightfur Repair, how you can send this to the graveyard because of Frightfur Cruel Whale, that's how you do it. And what's great about Cruel Whale is you would use this effect, target Kraken, it attacks twice, it would basically put it to 3,300. It would swing for a total direct of 6,600. Do you see why this deck is just really good as an OTK? It's honestly, run this as a 2-of. This is a card that you would want to run as a 2-of. You could maybe push it down to 1. Maybe push down to 1. But you would always want, like, that extra, like, Cruel Whale just in case you needed to do something. And it helps that it's not once per... The first effect is not once per turn. It is not once per turn, but it has to be fusion summoned, unfortunately. If it was special summoned, it would be even more broken. But yeah, Cruel Whale, one of the best in terms of Frightfurs. Tiger. Tiger is also incredible. Requires Archetype Sabers and one or more Fluffal monsters. When this card is fusion summoned, you can target cards on the field up to the number of fusion materials used for its fusion summon. Destroy them. All Frightfur monsters you control gain 300 attack for each Fluffal monster and Frightfur monster you control. So this is Fluffals and Frightfurs, and it's plus one or more Fluffal monsters. So you could have infinite Fluffals. Infinite Fluffals. Let's say, right, I've had games where I had Sabers in the graveyard, along with, like, let's say, 5 Fluffal monsters or something, right? I would then use Frightfur Fusion, which, if you remember, banish fusion materials listed from your field or graveyard. That's 6 materials. So you basically get to destroy 6 cards, which is really, 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 really cool. Really cool. And you could potentially use this as a way to chain block the opponent from negating the effect. So you would go Frightfur Tiger, chain 1, and then, let's say, Fluffal Penguin, chain 2. Fluffal Penguin, like, would go and then Frightfur Tiger. And the opponent, let's say if they had, let's go back to Invoked. Let's go back to this. When a spell track or monster effect is activated, send the same type. Cards like this, they would have to target, like, the latest chain, so it would have to be chain 2. So it wouldn't stop Tiger, which is really cool. But for cards like Effect Veiler, that's and Impermanence, that's where Tiger would kind of be crippled. But for the most part, Tiger is just an insane board wipe. It's like the Zeus of this deck. One thing I will point out though, if you're going to use Frightfur Fusion to fuse with Penguin, Penguin only works if it is sent to the graveyard as a fusion material for a fusion summon of a Frightfur Fusion monster. So it's very specific. You can't banish it. It would be really cool if you could, but unfortunately not. So you wouldn't be able to chain block it there. Right, yeah, and it's the same more or less for cards like Fluffal Cat, where it's sent to the graveyard. For chains sent to the graveyard. Yeah, but no, really good, really good. The fact that you can just use an infinite number of Fluffal monsters, that's awesome. And then this is my personal favorite card in the deck, in terms of just its effect, in terms of its design, in terms of like what it can do. I love this card. I love it. So, Frightfur Sabertooth. It requires one Frightfur Fusion monster and a Fluffal and or Edge Imp monster. So, you could use, again, an infinite number of Fluffal or Edge Imp monsters, but I would only ever recommend you use 3 materials to fusion summon this. Don't overextend and use more than 3. So, given that I've said that Frightfur Chimera sucks because it requires 3 Frightfur Fusion monsters, and this requires 1, you would think, like, this might not be as good either, but what's really cool about this, here we go. When this card is fusion summoned, you can target 1 Frightfur monster in your graveyard, special summon it. And that's not once per turn. So, let's say, for example, you have Kraken, alright, on your field, and then you have 2 polymerizations and Fluffal Owl or Edge Imp Chain, okay? And that is a realistic scenario, because with Fluffals, with this archetype, thanks to Toy Vendor, you're going to be having a massive hand advantage, so you'll have like a lot of these combos ready to go. So you would use the effect of Kraken to send an opponent's monster to the graveyard. Then you would fuse Kraken into one of your Fluffal Edge Imp monsters to go into Sabertooth. Sabertooth would then bring... Sorry. Sabertooth would then bring back Kraken, and then because, if you remember, Kraken, it's a soft once per turn, it could do its effect again, it can send it to the graveyard again. And then you can just fuse again, Kraken, into another Sabertooth, not once per turn, bring back Kraken, soft once per turn, send it. It's so cool. It is so cool. Honestly, and that's only like the first effect. There's 2 others. All Frightfur monsters you control gain 400 attack. So this is just an instant, like, bonus to Kraken. Which is incredible. And as a matter of fact, because if the opponent has an empty field, and they have no response, and you have Frightfur Sabertooth and Frightfur Kraken on your field, ready to attack directly, you could... It's exactly... Right, given the 400 plus attack, it is exactly 8,000 points of damage for lethal. Exactly 8,000. 28 plus 26. Really cool. And finally, if this card was fusion summoned using 3 or more fusion materials, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Just an overall really one of my personal favourite cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Ever. You would... I can see why you would only ever run 1. As a matter of fact, try experimenting with 1 or 2. Don't run 3 though, I wouldn't recommend running 3. But definitely run, like, 1 or 2. That's what I recommend, and it's just so good. It is so good. It is just... this card, and Tiger, and Cruel Whale, These three are contenders for being the best Frightfur cards in the deck. I think if I'm putting my personal bias aside, it's probably Cruel Whale, but Sabertooth, it's my personal favorite. Just everything about it, it's so cool. Finally, this is the final Frightfur Fusion monster, Frightfur Wolf. Edge Imp Sabers plus one or more Fluffal monsters. So again, much like Sabertooth and Frightfur Tiger, you can use more than one monster, more than one. And this is basically the OTK demon of this deck. This is the OTK demon. Must be fusion summoned with the above fusion materials and cannot be special summoned by other ways, which it does suck that that's the case, but that's fine, because realistically, that you would only ever want to do this anyway. This card can attack a number of times each battle phase up to the number of fusion materials used for its fusion summon. So add on top of Frightfur Sabertooth giving 400 plus attack, or Frightfur Cruel Whale, where you target a fusion monster you control and then target monster gains attack equals to half of its attack, putting it to 3,000. And add on top of that Frightfur Fusion, where you can banish Sabers and any number of Fluffal monsters. This could theoretically attack like 3, 5, 10 more times. Like you need to plan it though. You need to like be absolutely sure you can do lethal, that you won't be disrupted. But a lot of the times it is better to have Kraken, because like with Kraken, it does have the bonus effect of just sending stuff, but Frightfur Wolf, if you know that you can win, if you know you can't win with Kraken, but you know you can win with Wolf, it's really good, and go with Wolf. One last thing I want to say about Wolf. One of my favourite memories of playing Fluffals, this archetype, I was going up against a guy, don't remember the deck he was playing against, but it doesn't matter. He played he played a card called Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood, which during either turn, except during the end phase, discard this card. Each time your opponent special summons effect monsters during the main or battle phase, you gain life points equal to that monster's attack. So what I did was I just special summoned. My opponent got like something along the lines of like 15,000 like life points, but then I made up for that by bringing out Frightfur Wolf, and then just attacked so many times I got game. It was, I love it. I just love the card. So that takes care of all the Fluffal monsters, all the Edge Imp monsters, spells, traps, and Frightfur monsters. Next will be the cards that synergize really well with this archetype. Okay, next up will be the tech cards, or cards that synergize with Fluffal, the archetype. So, let's move on to King of the Swamp. King of the Swamp, this card in your hand, field, or graveyard can be used as a substitute for any one fusion material whose name is mentioned on the fusion monster card, but the other materials must be correct. You can discard this card to the graveyard, add one polymerization from your deck to your hand. So it searches, and it also is a good substitute for cards like Frightfur Leo, Frightfur Tiger, Frightfur Wolf, Frightfur Bear if you're, again, if you're quite desperate. But yeah, this is just incredible. It's an incredible card, and it's a must for like Fluffal, I would say. Unfortunately, again, you can't search for it, but it's not a bad thing if you have it in your hand. It's amazing if you have it. Herald of the Orange Light. This card, it's a hand trap. When your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can send this card and one other fairy monster from your hand to the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. It negates and destroys, which is so cool. It's so useful a lot of the times. And it helps because if you see right here, fairy, 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 all your Fluffals are fairies. So what you could do is you activate Herald of the Orange Light, send itself, and Fluffal Wings, which, you know, we love to have that in the graveyard. We love that. To then essentially just completely, like, choke the opponent into, like, scooping, potentially, or just disrupting them heavily. Unfortunately, there are times where if you destroy an opponent's monster, it helps them extend. I can't think of any cards off the top of my head, but there are cards that the opponent... There are monsters that, if destroyed, end up essentially making things sort of worse. But for the most part, it's just really, really good. Like, 9 times out of 10, this helps more than it doesn't, I would say. It's especially right. One of the main reasons why this card is so worth having is because of the fact that you gain access to... So, there are cards in this arc. There are cards such as Droll and Lockbird, Nibiru, and DD Crow, which all 3 of these cards, they heavily disrupt Fluffal. Droll and Lockbird, this deck does draw a lot, this deck does search a lot. Nibiru, it summons a lot, this deck does a lot of things. DD Crow, if DD Crow targets wings and sends wings, then like you therefore can't draw 2 cards and search. So being able to just have Orange Light ready just in case like your opponent has something to stop you, it's really good. Really, really good. Apologies, was just checking the recording just to see if everything was recorded correctly, my voice and everything. All's good. So let's move on. Now, we have Sakitama here, and I have to credit YouTuber Thomas Wayne for the idea. So, with Sakitama, cannot be special summoned. Once per turn during the end phase, if this card was normal summoned or flipped face up this turn, return this card to the hand. You can only use each of the following effects of Sakitama once per turn. You can reveal this card in your hand. Immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon 1 spirit monster from your hand. This card is tributed. Target 1 spirit monster in your graveyard. Add it to your hand. So, what you would do with this card is it's a level 4. And as you can see, quite a lot of cards are level 4s, like Fluffal Dog is a level 4, Fluffal Penguin level 4, Fluffal Dolphin level 4, Edge Imp Chain level 4, and especially with with Penguin, where you special summon 1 Fluffal monster from your hand, you go into so many. You can go into so many level 4s. You've got Castel, Giant Hand, Time Thief, Daigusto, Silent Honor Arc, Stealth Kraken, Tornado Dragon. Just this card, if you want to go for a more Xyz build with Fluffal, then you can do that. I would highly recommend running this card if you do want to go down the Xyz route. However, just be wary. If you are running cards like Fluffal Mouse, it locks you into fusion summoning. Or Frightfur Monsters even. It locks you completely into Frightfurs. So, just be wary of that if you are going to run Sakitama. Alright? Okay, so I was a complete idiot just now. I don't know if you've noticed, but I added the wrong Rescue Ace card to talk about. So I just quickly changed it. Now, Rescue Ace Impulse. This is a really good budget option for mulch armies. So what you would do, during your main phase, you can choose 1 effect monster your opponent controls with the highest attack. Neither plane can activate that monster effects on the field this turn. You don't really care about the first effect, it's the second effect you care about. When your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, quick effect, you can tribute this card from your hand or face-up field, special summon 1 machine Rescue Ace monster from your deck. And what you would do, you would run 3 copies of this, one copy of Rescue Ace Fire Attacker, and Fire Attacker, the only thing you would care about is its second effect, which is if a card is added to your opponent's hand, except by drawing it, you draw 2 cards and discard 1 card. So what you would do here is, let's say you had nothing but Edge Imp cards in your hand, and like a Herald of the Orange Light. Like, that doesn't work with the Edge Imp cards, but you managed to have let's say Impulse. You would use Impulse, bring out Fire Attacker, then the opponent, if they add a card to their hand, you would then use Fire Attacker, you would draw 2 cards, and then let's say the 2 cards you drew, like, yay, it's a Fluffal monster, you can then discard Edge Imp Chain, and then Chain would let you search for Frightfur Patchwork, therefore leading you to go and it would then lead you into a combo for an OTK next turn. So it's really good at turning your dead hand into a not so dead hand. Problem is, I will say one of the many flaws of Fluffals is that it is a little bit luck based with how it draws cards. Like for example, Toy Vendor, you just draw cards. That's one example really, and then Penguin, you also draw cards. It's not so much searching that gets you there, it's mostly just drawing and then sometimes also searching. But I mean, given if you run cards like Herald of the Orange Light, or Sakitama, cards that you cannot search for normally in Fluffals, if you see those cards in your hand, it opens up a lot of different ways to extend your plays and go beyond and OTK. So this is a really good package. However, me personally, I would probably just prefer playing the Mulch Armies. The Mulch Armies just seem better, even if they are more expensive. Mulch Army Fuwalos only really is 2 extra points in comparison. So, and not only that, but you could be seeing a lot more cards being added to your hand through cards like Perilia. Yeah, definitely something to consider. Right. Next, you have Drawn Lockbird, Nibiru the Primal Being, and DD Crow. With these cards, you could run them. I would recommend running 3 DD Crow in the side deck. That's like one of, if not the best staple card in Genesys format right now. Just being able to discard this card, send a card from your opponent's graveyard to banish. Like it is a shockingly like great way to disrupt the opponent, and especially given that it costs 0. It costs nothing, so I would ideally run this in a side deck. The other 2 though, it's up to you. You could theoretically run 1 copy of each and then just run Cross Out. Yeah, you could run 1 copy of each and then run, let's say, 3 Cross Out, putting it to like 40, but I would not recommend it at all. Because with Fluffals, there is no 1 card combo in Fluffals, unfortunately. It's mostly just 2 card combos. But the fact that you were able to draw so much and search so much in the deck kind of makes it that it doesn't really matter that it's a 2 card combo. But saying that though, if you do add cards like Crossout, it does unfortunately negatively affect the build of the deck overall, because you don't want to see, let's say, Crossout in your hand and then Herald of the Arclight, 1 Fluffal card, and then just 2 other dead cards. You don't want that. So, I wouldn't recommend running Crossout, but it is an option. With Drawn Lockbird, if you have the point space, definitely consider it. Mulch Armies. Given personal experience, Perilia is just a lot better, because the opponent, from my experience, a lot of decks, they summon from the hand more than they do, like, from the deck. And it's showcased by the point difference, really. But depending on, like, let's say, if your locals has a lot of people who are playing fusion decks that just do a lot of cards when they like bring cards out from the extra deck, definitely think about running Fluffals, but I'm probably butchering the stupid name. But yeah, just whatever you think is best, I would highly recommend running 3 copies of one of these, or 3 copies of each. It is expensive though, you would be seeing a 51 points put into this, add on top of the fact Frightfur Patchwork, which, if there is any one card in this deck that you would want to spend points on, it would be 1 copy of Patchwork. This is the most important card that you would want to spend. I cannot see a way for you to play Fluffal without Patchwork, just because it literally gives you Polymerization Frightfur, Polymerization Edge Imp. So, I mean, just go with because just experiment really. For me personally, I just found that Perilia is a lot better when like just practicing against most decks. Now, Eldritch the Golden Lord. So, what makes this card so good? You can send this card and 1 spell trap from your hand to the graveyard, then target 1 card on the field, send it to the graveyard. If this card is in your graveyard, you can send 1 spell trap you control to the graveyard, add this card to your hand, then you can special summon 1 zombie monster from your hand, and if you do, till the end of your opponent's turn, gains 1000 attack and defense, and cannot be destroyed by card effects. So, if you remember Toy Vendor, how when this card is sent to the graveyard, add 1 Edge of Sabers or 1 Fluffal monster, this card, right, honestly, this feels like it is Fluffal support. I'm not kidding. Because what you would do, if you have this card and Toy Vendor in your hand, you would discard Eldritch with Toy Vendor, draw any random card, doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what card you draw. Then you would use Eldritch Golden Lord, send Toy Vendor, add Golden Lord to hand, summon Golden Lord, and then Toy Vendor add a Fluffal or Edge Imp Sabers. And so you essentially get a 3500 attack point monster on your field that cannot be destroyed by card effects, and at the same time you can extend into a Fluffal. My only problem, unfortunately, with this is, even though this sounds absolutely perfect, you ideally don't want to see like a ton of clutter in the deck. Like, through experimenting with like different builds, I eventually cut out Eldritch the Golden Lord, and just relegated it mostly to the side deck. Just because with this card, like, sometimes you'll have an opening hand where it's just nothing but Fluffals and also Eldritch the Golden Lord, and it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good at all. I mean, if you have, like, Bear, then I guess it's alright, but, like, I don't know, just a lot of the times it's not really worth it. It's like another... It's like once in a blue moon, but nowhere near as bad as Frightfur Waltz. You will see this happen a lot more, but there will be times where it just feels awful to have this. But, saying that though, there is a way to make Eldritch the Golden Lord more consistent, and it's with a card... It's with a card called Royal Penguin's Garden. When this card is activated, you can add 1 penguin card from your deck to your hand, except Royal Penguin's Garden. Once per turn during your main phase, you can decrease the level of 1 penguin monster in your hand, or face-up field by 1, until the end of this turn, then discard 1 card. So, this is again a continuous spell card. What's really funny, so, Penguin, this is mostly just meant to be support for, like, the Penguin archetype, like Great Emperor Penguin, Penguin Soldier, a handful of penguins really, but you can search Fluffal Penguin with this, which is just so, like, I remember this was around the time I was really starting to get back into Yu-Gi-Oh! And it was during, Burst of Destiny, and this is the set that it came out in. As soon as I realized that, I was cooking hard. I was cooking hard with it. Right, but yes, so ideally what you would do, you would add Fluffal Penguin to your hand. Through adding Fluffal Penguin to your hand, summon it, and then you would discard a card, ideally Eldritch, you would discard Eldritch, decrease its level, or you just decrease its level, and then Golden Lord send Royal Penguin's Garden to then bring it out, which, you know, if you want to incorporate Golden Lord, highly recommend running 1 or 2 copies of Royal Penguin's Garden, especially because Fluffal Penguin is a very important card in the deck. Yeah, I would recommend it. Moving on, we have Super Polymerization, and this is my favourite board breaker to play in Fluffal. It's my favourite. Discard a card, so you could discard Fluffal Wings, you could discard Toy Vendor, you could discard Eldritch the Golden Lord, you could discard Imp Chain. Fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from either field. Neither player can activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation. So, this card right here, I think you have to play if you're going for an OTK build. It just completely board wipes the opponent, and I mean, it just gets rid of like a large chunk of their board for you to just do your plays comfortably. And the potential to like extend through the discard thanks to Imp Chain or Fluffal Wings or Toy Vendor, it's amazing. It is really amazing. So with Super Polymerization, you would use Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, you would use Garua, you would use maybe Elder Entity Intis. That is a little bit unlikely, but if you want to run a Xyz version of this deck with Sakitama, then you're playing against a Synchro deck, then it is a possibility you could do that. Just there are a lot of ways to just go crazy with Super Polymerization. I went up against a Red Dragon Archfiend deck. They were able to bring out 3 Synchro Dragons that were dark, and it was I can't remember exactly what they were, unfortunately, but it doesn't really matter, because then what I did was I activated Super Polymerization and brought out Predaplant. I brought out Predaplant, Triffion. I'm not even going to try and say it. Just 3 dark monsters on the field. 3 dark monsters on the field. Just completely board wiped. So the potential to essentially destroy an opponent's entire board with Super Polymerization is incredible. It is just incredible. I would highly recommend you run as many of this as you can possibly run. Forbidden Droplet. With Forbidden Droplet, you would send cards like Toy Vendor. You could send cards like Fluffal Wings. Like, a lot of these cards just benefit from being in the graveyard. So many of these. So, Droplet is just great for that. And also, unlike Dark Ruler No More, you can still deal damage when battling. So you can still perform your OTKs. Just overall, another card that I would highly recommend considering running. I'm not personally running this though, because I don't have enough points. If at any point this card gets either buffed and reduced in points, then I would absolutely highly recommend running this, but I can't see that happening. Just from personal experience, I would always go with Super Polymerization over Forbidden Droplet. Ultimate Slayer, another really good card. It costs no points, which is really good. You would use Ultimate Slayer to send Elder Entity Entis. You can send Myriologic Aggregator, all these cards to just completely disrupt what the opponent is doing. I won't be going into detail on a lot of these cards, such as Forbidden Droplet, Ultimate Slayer, because I will assume that you know what these cards do, because these cards are all like iconic board breakers. But they're here if you want to read them. So with Ultimate Slayer, it's just really good disruption overall. Twin Twisters. I think, right, you have Twin Twisters, Cosmic Cyclone, and Heavy Storm. So with these three cards, there are benefits to using all three. So with Twin Twisters, you can destroy 2 cards, but you'd have to discard a card. But again, we don't mind discarding because of the extensions we get from it. Cosmic Cyclone banishes a card, but only 1 card. And then Heavy Storm, it destroys all cards, which could potentially destroy Toy Vendor and give you even more extension. But it costs 10 points. So it doesn't really matter which one you run. If you want my personal suggestion, I would possibly say Twin Twisters would be the best one to run. But I wouldn't put it past someone if they decided to run either Heavy Storm or Cosmic Cyclone. Just, unfortunately, Heavy Storm is so it is just added on top of how expensive all the other cards are. Heavy Storm would just be, like, so difficult to add in, on top of every other card you want to add in too. Right. And then you have Dark World Ascension, which, once again, thank you to the channel, that one nerdy friend, for making me aware of this card. This card is a quick play, so you can set this, and then during the main phase, fusion summon 1 Fiend Fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing monsters listed on it from your field or graveyard. And then the rest of it is just Dark World stuff, which we're not really running Dark World, so it doesn't really matter. But as you can see here, Fiend, 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 all of it is Fiends. Almost all of it. All Frightfurs are Fiends. So it is a potential card that you would want to run if you want to surprise the opponent on their turn. Like, if you're going first, for example, or just in general. I, again, personally won't be running this. I'm not running this just mainly because you can't really search for it, unfortunately. You would have to, like, draw into it, which I'm not really a huge fan of, and you wouldn't want to play more than 3 copies of it either, just because it would hurt to have, let's say, 2 copies of this card in your hand and then not have any fuel to use it. Fusion Deployment. Reveal 1 fusion monster in your extra deck and special summon from your hand or deck 1 of the fusion materials whose name is mentioned on that monster. Also, you can't special summon monsters from the extra deck except fusion monsters the turn you activate this. So you would reveal Frightfur Bear, which would be the best one to reveal for fusion deployment, to then bring out either Bear or Sabers. And with Bear, you contribute this, remember, to get polymerization for a potential play. If you don't have a King of the Swamp or an Owl or a Patchwork or just anything. Only problem, it does lock you into fusions, so you would not be able to run the Xyz package. Right. Now, Fusion Destiny. Back during the TCG, around 2023, late 2022, this card was really, really, really good in Fluffals. It was really good in Fluffals. What you would do is you would use Predaplant Verte Anaconda to send Fusion Destiny to then bring out Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer. And the reason why you would run this in the deck is just because of Toy Vendor. Sorry. So you would run it because of Toy Vendor being able to just draw. You're drawing cards, and you could see this card as you're drawing, and it's just a free way to go into Destiny Hero Destroy Phoenix Enforcer. of course, we don't have Verte since it's Genesys. And as you can clearly tell, this card is just stupid expensive. It is stupid, stupid, stupid expensive in terms of the points. You would... I cannot see anyone running this in Genesys, but the reason why I bring this up is just because with Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, it has the effect, once per turn, destroy both one card you control and one card on the field. So it is basically just a Frightfur Cruel Whale, but you get to time it. You essentially, it's not on summon. Or the effect from being summoned, you could just do it whenever. So you could target, let's say, Toy Vendor, and you could also target like the opponent's card and then just destroy them. But the reason I do bring this up is because I want to like keep this in mind. If, for example, Fusion Destiny or Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, if they both get buffed and their points are heavily reduced, this could be an option to add in, but unfortunately I don't see it happening. But if it does happen, definitely consider running it, because just having a way to go into Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer is great. And the two cards that you would use are Celestial and Dasher. Celestial, it has the effect where you only really care about the graveyard effect, where you banish this card and one Destiny Hero monster from your graveyard, draw two cards. That's the one you care about. But you have to have no cards in your hand to do this, so it's just for if your fuel in your hand just runs dry. And also with this is good because once per turn you contribute one other monster. This card gains 1000 attack until the end of this turn. This card attacks change it to defense position at the end of the battle phase. Once while this card is in your graveyard, when you draw a monster during your draw phase, you can reveal it, special summon it. Yeah. So both effects, really good. Effects in the graveyard and stuff. It was so good with Fluffal during TCG, but it's just not there anymore, it's unfortunately. But, you know, keep in mind, if this card does get reduced, definitely consider playing it. I'd say if it is any higher than 20, I wouldn't run it. But if it is, like, lower than 20, like if this is 15, definitely consider running, like, 2 copies. Right. And the last 3 cards right here are cards that you would use for going first. So you would side these in if you were going first. So, Necrofusion. Fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials mentioned on it from your graveyard face down, but it cannot attack this turn. So with this, ideally the main card the main Frightfur monster you would want to go into is Tiger. So you would do this, go into Tiger, just completely blow up the opponent's board and disrupt them. Or, if you don't have enough materials to go into Tiger, or you don't have sabers in your graveyard, you can instead go into Cruel Whale, which it can pop itself, and then, or a card on your field, just whenever, and then pop a card on the opponent's field. So definitely, I would highly, highly recommend putting this in the side, just for in case the opponent is going second. Threatening Roar. Again, if you're going first, your opponent cannot declare an attack this turn, so you would just let them build their board, and then the turn 3, that is when you would OTK. So this would just guarantee that you live until turn 3. And then finally, this is my favourite trap card in the entire game, personally speaking. Curse Seal of the Forbidden Spell. When a spell card is activated, discard 1 spell, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. And if you do that, your opponent cannot activate spell cards with that name for the rest of this duel. So, the reason why I love this card so much is that if you time it right, if you just do, if you target the right card, so for example, I was playing Fluffal around the time that Branded came out. I would run this in the main deck, just for branded fusion. This card right here. And it would just completely lock the opponent out. Because they would just never be able to use it in that game. Unfortunately, it is a very situational card. I cannot recommend that you put it in your side deck or put it in the main, especially the main deck, especially if you're going for an OTK build. But in terms of the side deck, I can't fully recommend it. If you do want to really put it in the side deck though, I would only ever really run it at 2 copies. But the fact that you could do this, completely shut down an opponent's card for the rest of the game, and send Toy Vendor, that's also again really good. It's just more discard, more extensions, more play. Alright, and then we have the rest of the cards here, which are just essentially extra deck tech options, so if you just want to go crazy. We'll start with Guardian Chimera. Alright. Guardian Chimera, 3 monsters with different names, must be fusion summoned using only fusion materials from your hand and field, with at least 1 monster from each. So you would not be able to use Super Polymerization, because Super Polymerization only works on monsters on the field. If this card is fusion summoned by a spell card or effect, you can draw cards equal to the number of cards used as material from the hand, and if you do, destroy cards your opponent controls equal to the number of cards used as material from the field. You can only use this effect of Guardian Chimera once per turn. While Polymerization is in the graveyard, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. So you would use this, draw cards, and blow up the opponent's board. And honestly, I would 100% recommend you run this card in Fluffals. The only thing holding it back is the points. Because of the points, I cannot say that you should run it. I wish you could, I wish, but it's just too expensive, if you ask me, to run. So what I would do is I would try and focus on the main deck, see how many points you can get on the main deck, and then maybe if you have enough points, try and put Guardian Chimera in, but I wouldn't recommend it again, just because, like, Super Poly would just be so much better for disrupting the opponent, because you could still just go into other Frightfur monsters and do all the insane stuff, like you would normally do. It's just Guardian Chimera, it just lets you draw and pop. Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, even if you don't have Super Polymerization, it's still good because it's 2 dark monsters on the field, and, you know, all the Frightfur monsters except Kraken and Cruel Whale are all dark, so you can just use this, gain huge attack, and then just go nuts. Bahamut Shark, 81 points. I do not ever believe this card will be reduced in points. In fact, I do not recommend you run this at all. Don't run this. But I bring this up because, if this ever does get reduced in points somehow, I doubt it. I really doubt it, but if it does, you would bring it out with Fluffal Penguin, Fluffal Dolphin. You would then, let's say, Toad. You would then go into Totally Awesome, right here. So it would just be a bonus negate. It's mainly a going first card though, I would say. Just don't run it. I just don't run it. Unless you're in a tournament that has like a cap of 300 Genesys points, I wouldn't run it. I just wouldn't run it. But if you're ever in like a situation where you are in a tournament with 300 Genesys points, you have a lot of flexibility to go with. It is an option. And then you have Castell, completely free. Detach one material, target one face-up monster on the field, change it to face-down defense position. But the better effect, you can just detach two materials, target one of a face-up card, shuffle it into the deck. Just really good for, like, if you want to get a card off the field and you have, like, so much stuff to extend into. This is just a negate, detach two materials, it's quick effect, target one effect monster. While this monster's face up, effect monster's effects are negated, cannot change its battle position. Time Thief Redoer, it just steals cards from the top of the opponent's deck, and it is difficult to get rid of just because it banishes itself. Die Gusto, you only really care about the first effect, which is target 3 monsters in your graveyard, shuffle all 3 into the deck, then draw 1 card. You also have Silent Honor Arc, Stealth Kraken, Stealth Kraken Spawn, Tornado Dragon. Tornado Dragon is just a way for you to basically pop spells and traps on the field. All these cards, if you're wanting to run an Xyz build, consider it. Deeply consider it, because these are all the best ones you can pick, especially given how cheap they are. You could also, if we were to filter for and then go Xyz, if you really wanted to, you could try and add in space for something like, let's say, Galliant, potentially. If you want to, like, run a rock, like any kind of rock engine. What else? Oh, where is it? Oh, here it is, yeah. There is also number 60, degrees. I don't know if... This is probably the best rank 4 that you could go into, but it's the best for a reason, that's why it has 10 points. Finally, well, not finally, we've got 1 or 2 things left. There is Magnum. 1 monster special summon from the extra deck, plus 1 monster in the hand. You can target 1 polymerization spell or fusion spell in your graveyard, place that card on the bottom of the deck, then draw 1 card. When another card or its effect is activated, quick effect, you can banish 1 polymerization spell or fusion spell from your graveyard, then target 1 card on the field, destroy it. So, it's, again, sort of disruption, once again. It's only once per turn though, unfortunately. Which, if it wasn't once per turn, it would be insane just because of the fact that you would have Necrofusion or Super Polymerization, Frightfur Fusion, all that. For its first effect as well, being able to recycle polymerizations or fusions, and then draw a card from it. It's pretty good. And then just the fact that, like, it doesn't require a specific monster. And then finally you have the Ishizu cards, really. This is for if you really want to go heavy on like milling with Toy Vendor and Fluffal Wings. This, again, was thanks to the YouTuber That One Nerdy Friend, who has a build of a Fluffal deck that has Ishizu cards in. I would highly recommend you check out all the channels I mention in this video, by the way. I will try and link all of them in the description, along with some videos that have deck profiles that also go into detail about Fluffals. But for the most part, this is that is every single Fluffal, Frightfur, Edge Imp, and card that synergizes with it. Every single one. If there are any others in if there are any other cards that synergize with Fluffal that I missed, please let me know in the comments. But this, for the most part, is all of what you can work with Fluffal. And with that, I'll just get straight into the deck that I've built for this, my own OTK deck, for Genesys, 100 points. Right, so this is my personal Fluffal deck list for OTK going second. We have 3 Fluffal Dog, 2 Fluffal Dolphin, 3 Fluffal Penguin, 3 Edge-Imp Chain, 3 Molcharmy Purulia, 1 copy of Edge-Imp Sabers, 3 Bear, 3 Scythe, 2 King of the Swamp, 1 Owl, 3 Herald of Orange Light, 1 Cat, 1 Wings, 2 Foolish Burial Goods, 1 Frightfur Fusion, 1 Frightfur Patchwork, 2 Polymerization, 2 Super Polymerization, 3 Toy Vendor, no trap cards. And in terms of extra deck, we have Predaplant, I'm not saying its name, you know what this card is. Frightfur Cruel Whale, 2 copies. Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, 1 copy. Predaplant Draco Stapelia, 1 copy. 2 Frightfur Sabertooth, 1 Frightfur Kraken, 1 Frightfur Leo, 1 Frightfur Wolf, 2 Frightfur Tiger, 1 Garura Wings of Resonant Life, 1 Mud Dragon of the Swamp, and then just, I guess, any Xyz card you want, but ideally, if I had to pick one for you to use, I mean, it wouldn't be Time Free Redoer, but I just threw it in just as a way to, like, experiment, really. I'm still figuring out the Xyz, really, but, for the most part, you could really throw in any Xyz. I would recommend having at least 1 Xyz in the deck, or 2. In terms of the side deck, we have 2 Eldritch the Golden Lord, 1 Kurikara, which I haven't really gone into, so I'll just very briefly go over it. Cannot be normal summon set, must be special summoned from your hand by tributing all face-up monsters on the field that activate their effects this turn in your opponent's monster zone. Gains 1500 attack for each monster tributed to special summon this card. During your end phase, you can target 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon it to your field. Can only use this effect of Kurikara Divincarnate once per turn. So it's basically Nibiru, but it costs nothing. The only downside, though, is that it's not a quick effect, it's not a hand trap. You have to use it on your turn, and you need to rely on the fact that your opponent is going to use monsters that are going to use their effects on the field. But if you're able to, like, just... If you're in the right matchup, this could be insane. This could win you a game. 2 DD Crows. Try... You know what? There you go. We'll do 2 Kurikara and 3 DD Crow. 1 Fluffal Wings, just because it's just in case, let's say, you weren't able to OTK, and you're going up against a deck that you know you aren't going to be able to OTK. So then, having a second Fluffal Wings just means that you can do the effect of Toy Vendor Fluffal Wings twice, where you draw 2 cards and search. Droll and Lockbird, I'm going to be honest, I kind of just threw in there just because without Droll and Lockbird this was a 95 point deck. So realistically you could just have Nibiru in here as well. Just if you really want. But yeah, if anyone has any suggestions for potentially what I should fill with the last like 5 points are, let me know. But for the most part, we only really have enough for 1 Nibiru or 1 Droll. We're doing 3 Cosmic Cyclone, which I will quickly change to Twin Twister, just because Twin Twister I feel is better. But it's good to just have 1 Cosmic Cyclone, because sometimes you just don't have anything good to discard with Twin Twisters. And then finally 3 Threatening Roar, for just in case you will end up going, first. And then, of course, Necro Fusion too. If I had to find space, I would do this. There you go. yeah, so this is the deck build. We'll give it a test right now, alright? So, this is an example of a hand in Fluffal that you would love to see. You would love to see a hand as insane as this in Fluffal. So, assuming you're going second, first thing you would want to do is you would want to use Super Polymerization, and you would discard Fluffal Bear. Once you've done that, you will have cleared the opponent's board through all of the Super Polymerization targets you have. And once you do that, then you can proceed onto your main combo. So first, you would use Foolish Burial Goods to then send a Toy Vendor. Toy Vendor, you would then be able to add to your hand. I would recommend Penguin, because Penguin is just insane when you fusion summon it. And then once you do that, you can then normal summon Dolphin, activate Dolphin to then set Toy Vendor, and then it sends wings for you. And then you would activate. Now, of course, we can discard. Well, I'll just discard Bear as an example. Right there. And then just set Super Poly. So let's pretend we just use Super Poly here, and then we have a fusion monster on our field, and that we don't have Dog. But now what you would do is you would, instead of going all gun-ho and use Fluffal Wings, I would recommend you would then use Frightfur Patchwork first, because the reason why you would do this first is because you shrink the deck. You are shrinking the deck of more cards. So you are more likely to therefore see the you're more likely to see cards that aren't Fluffal, aren't Edge Imp, aren't Frightfur related at all, essentially. Which is good, because it means that if you do draw them, it will be really good for being able to essentially defend yourself if you aren't able to OTK this turn. So here we go. We use Fluffal Wings. Fluffal Wings banish a Fluffal monster from the graveyard. This lets us draw a card. We can then destroy Toy Vendor. Toy Vendor lets us draw another card. And then through this, we then add to our hand any Frightfur card. Not Frightfur, any Fluffal or Edge Imp Sabers. So now that we've done that, we can then proceed to Fusion Summon. So I would recommend Fusion Summoning, let's say, Kraken. Once you do that, you can then... Once you do that, you can then activate and then activate. We will then discard and then add this. And the reason you discard that is because now you can activate and then go into Wolf. 1, 2, 3. And then right here, this is lethal, essentially. Oh, well, yeah, it is, yeah. Yeah. I have to second guess myself. Like so. So that's just one example. I'll show you another example. Okay, so this is a hand that I haven't tampered with at all. Presuming that we're going second once again. So let's say, for example, we used Herald of the Orange Light to discard Fluffal Penguin, and then the opponent essentially doesn't have anything. The opponent just they pass turn. Okay, so let's assume these are both in the graveyard. All right. You would then, what you would do is you would activate Toy Vendor, discard Chain. Got unlucky there, but it's fine, because then we can activate to then add. And then we activate to then add this, like so. And then what you can do is, because both Chain and Penguin would be in the graveyard, so I'll just summon Penguin for an example. You can then do this to then use Cruel Whale, go 1, 2, Cruel Whale, and then you would use Cruel Whale's effect to pop your own Toy Vendor, and then pop a card on the opponent's field, and on top of that, you would then use Toy Vendor to add a Fluffal monster from your deck to your hand, which then in turn can let you fusion summon again for game. So that's just another example. Let's do a rematch. Now this is an example of a dead hand. Just a complete dead hand. 2 Edge Imp Scythe, 2 Edge Imp Chain, nothing we can do. It does let us use Polymerization, but it's just for Garua. I mean, we're not OTKing with this. We're just not. We're not OTKing. There's nothing we can do. It's nothing. Now with this, again, if you're going second, unfortunately the Herald of Orange Light won't do anything. But then with Perilia, you would essentially draw, and all you need is that one Fluffal monster to just go off. All you need is that one Fluffal monster. Bonus if you can get another, so you can turn on Herald of the Orange Light. Let's do a couple more times. So once again, we now have Mulch Army, and we have Scythe. So we could use Scythe to then summon out Cruel Whale. And then pop a card on the opponent's field, essentially. And then come next turn, if Cruel Whale is still on the field, we can then use Polymerization to then sacrifice Cruel Whale, go into Frightfur Sabertooth with Edge Imp Chain, and then Edge Imp Chain would then essentially... Edge Imp Chain would then let us add Frightfur Fusion. Then you use Frightfur Fusion to go into, let's say, Frightfur Kraken, and then go for game. We'll do it 1 or 2 more times. Thankfully, not a dead hand, because of Foolish Burial Goods. Once again, Dolphin. Dolphin summon. Dolphin effect. You set it. You then send Wings. Activate. You then activate Patchwork. Patchwork add. And then because we already have 2 of the others, we'll then just add Sabers. Then we will activate, go into 1, 2. Yep. And then 1 and 2. So Dolphin, remember, returns Polymerization or any fusion card. Now we can do Wings. Draw. Oh, that is so unlucky. We haven't normal summoned yet this... Oh wait, no we have, my bad, we have, false alarm. I would add, what I would do then is I would add Penguin to hand, just for next turn. Well, if you are able to go next turn. See, one thing you could do is if you run 2 Kraken, you would have game here, because you could just use Frightfur Fusion. So it's just a matter of how often do you find yourself in situations where you can game, but you weren't able to because you didn't build the deck that specific way. It's just a lot to think about. There's a lot in terms of building with Fluffal. There's so much. Now, because we have King of the Swamp, we can poly going into, let's say, Fight for Tiger. Obviously we won't be able to do much with Tiger, because the opponent doesn't have anything, but if we pretend the opponent does have stuff, then we use Tiger. Tiger pop 2 cards on their field. And then Dolphin. Dolphin lets us draw 2. Then discard Toy Vendor. Toy Vendor. Dolphin. And then once again, just same thing as usual. Send. Activate. This. Draw. Draw. It's just... It's so cool. It's so cool, honestly. Unfortunately, we don't really have any method of using polymerization, but we did have Perilia in hand, so, again, going second, the opponent would have summoned from the hand at least once, or maybe just, I don't know, if they're playing, like, Labyrinth, they might just very well set 4 and pass, but either way, this is a lot. This is a lot to work with. Right, Now, finally, I will show some replays of me playing with this deck against real opponents, and showcasing what this deck can do. Alright, I won't be commentating over it, unfortunately. I'll just let the deck speak for itself, now that you understand everything. And so, this concludes my complete guide to playing Fluffal, Frightfur, Imp. Yeah, if any of you have any questions or anyone have any suggestions, please just comment down below and let me know how this deck list went and how it goes for you. But I believe I've covered everything. I'll admit this is the first time I've made a video like this where I've heavily edited it. I've overall just it's just the first time I've really done Yu-Gi-Oh! On this channel. So if you like this, let other people know, you know? It will be cool to see other people playing Fluffals and Frightfurs, seeing what they can come up with. And be sure to share your own deck lists and share like all the other bits of cards and advice that I could have done. I'll admit, some of the replays I did end up showing. I wanted to show replays where I lost just because I wanted to show that Frightfurs, Fluffals, you know, they aren't invincible. They can be completely choked down, and you know, all depends on how much draw power they get, how much overall, like how like well they time their for example, like how well Frightfur Cool Whale gets timed, or Tiger, or just, you know, you saw before banishing wings from the graveyard and stuff. A lot of experimenting and planning went into everything, trying to make this deck the way it is. So yeah, please let me know how I did, and I will admit I did make a mistake in Game 3 where I forgot to use Time Thief, what is it? Time Thief Redo's effect to add a copy from the top of the deck to itself. I've completely forgot. There were a bunch of misplays that you probably noticed. But yeah, that is more or less how it's went. How it happens, you know? Just it's inevitable. But again, thank you very much for watching. I apologize if this video was very, very long. I want to cover everything, absolutely everything, about what is, in my opinion, one of my favorite archetypes in the game. So yeah, if you can, share this around, and thank you so much for watching. Usually at the end of my videos, I end by saying bone yeah. You know, oh bone thousand. Right. Well, thank you for watching again. See you in the maybe next Yu-Gi-Oh video. Bone yeah.